Welcome all to the first, in which we hope will be many, P3 podcasts. I'm not going to go into the name like P3, potatoes, pasta, pizza. Many people have tried to figure it out, but for now we'll just call it P3 podcast, and we'll leave it at that, charmed fans. In the podcast, we hope to cover all that is relevant to Neverwinter for the past and future 30 days. We have assembled for you many of the current and new content creators of Neverwinter Online to ask and answer the questions that are on the top of their minds as well as yours. In doing so, we hope that we will find an alternative way to keep up to date on all that is trending in the game. Our goal is that every 30 days, we'll have between 4 and 6 content creators joining us to bring you approximately 60 minutes of electrifying debate on what was and will be Neverwinter going forward. Our first topic will be focused on the proposal, a written document provided by Cryptic for feedback, a result of both the CDP and the CDP summaries from the Neverwinter players and the development team. So over much of the past 30 days, a part of the community has been participating in the Collaborative Development Program, also referred to as CDP. This is an initiative introduced by new executive producer Chris Whiteside. The topic was accessibility. It was not directly defined about what that actually meant, leaving it open to some interpretation. In the second stage, we were asked to pick a top 3 from the suggestions. So the first thing I'm going to ask all the panelists is to tell me your number 1. So with that, let me introduce the 3 panelists or content creators we have us with today on this episode. So who we have with us today? We have 3, one YouTuber, which she refers, like she doesn't want to be called that. So we're going to call her that. She's a YouTuber. We have Rachel Silvery, whose mouth is going to be full for most of this those podcasts, she says. It's not by her. So anyways, she has little... What am I saying here?
What are you saying?
What am I saying? Like, it's like I'm looking. I'm going to go on a flow, and then I'm totally off topic. It's right. It's okay. This Silver is going to edit this out, right? This will be edited out for sure.
Yeah.
We hope so.
So Rachel Silvery is a preeminent YouTuber, not by her choice, as she has little to do with it. She literally just makes builds, dies repeatedly to entertain her audience, thus disproving her own builds. So that's the first person we'll have a guest. And then we also have with us Lord Willow, a Twitch streamer.
Do I get to say hi?
No, you don't. There's no highs in this.
Okay.
There'll be no talking.
Gotcha.
I thought your mouth was going to be full of food for the whole thing.
I never said that.
Oh, all right. Okay. Okay, so say hi now.
Hi.
All right, there we go. Thanks you. We have Lord Willow, a Twitch streamer and resident spreadsheet aficionado. He's told me privately that he has joined XLA, that's Spreadsheets Anonymous, to try and curb his habit. The coming months will be important for his recovery, so I will support him in this. Willow?
Yo, what's up?
Right. And we had, last but not least, well, it actually is really least because really it's only a one-line introduction. It's MisfitMouse, noted cheese expert and spelling demon.
Accurate.
All right.
True story.
So let's start off with, we just went through this whole big schlamoggle for like a month. We thought it was going to be like 2 weeks. Ended up being like closer to 4 or 5. And we're just getting to the end of it now. The CDP, right? The first one about accessibility. And so one of the questions I wanted to ask each of you was, so I mean, we did some prep, but I don't know how much prep you guys do because I do none. But the first question is, out of all of the CDP stuff, what 2 things, you know, what was the number 1 thing that you saw? What was the number 1 thing that you thought that was, wow, that's nailed me. That's what I want. Rachel?
Why do I gotta go first?
Oh, you don't.
you're
I can
fast.
say, I can ask somebody else to go first because you still have your food in your mouth. Is that what you're saying?
Well, because that's not the first question on the document.
It's
It
not?
doesn't say to pick. It's asked. The first question is what my first impressions are, not what my number 1 thing is.
All right. So then, okay. Well, you're just going to make this difficult. Okay.
I'm not trying to make it difficult.
This is not getting deleted from the podcast. I'm just telling you, this is not getting deleted. All right.
I'm gonna delete it.
Speaking the truth, come on.
All right. So then, what was your first impressions, Rachel?
I think it's a big undertaking that they're going to do. And I will be surprised if they manage to hit everything to the fullest potential throughout the entire year. It's just a lot. And knowing what we know about their limited resources and how little time they actually have to do things in each development cycle, it has me a little bit concerned. But I'm also hopeful because I like everything that's being said. I like the different ideas that are listed, and I think that it touches on a lot of the different points that people are really concerned about. So I am cautiously hopeful. That's my first impression.
Of what? Like, because I mean, overall of the CDP as a whole?
The proposal.
Just the proposal, okay.
That's what we're talking about, right?
No. The proposal was kind of like the middle ground, right? Like, you want to go past to present
It says...
to future. But that's okay. I mean, that's fine. She didn't come prepared, is basically what she's saying. She only read, like, the page from today. That's what happened.
Uh-huh.
There's only one page.
Oh, no, there's 14 pages.
Oh, Christ, you want us to go over all of that?
No, I don't want you to go all. I wanted 2 things from that. I wanted 2 things. But that's okay. What about... So let's go to Willow, because I know Willow knew what I was talking about. So what...
So I'm actually slightly in agreement with Rachel here, and yes, I have a couple of topics that I posted on the CDP. All of my topics made the list, in the proposal today, and let's clarify, it wasn't really a proposal. This is kind of a roadmap that was put together. My first impressions of the roadmap, and the CDP process, I am cautiously optimistic. I'm actually probably more optimistic than some people on this. I've experienced in the past new managers coming in. I've witnessed it from the outside, seeing new managers coming into development teams and completely turning the ship around without having to, change resources. And I know you hate referring to people as resources, Hastur, so I'm going to say resources again.
Well, I was thinking there was an awful lot of flexing in the early part of your statement anyways. It was like, I put my 2 cents in, and my 2 cents made it to the top, is what you're saying, basically.
Well, the thing is that there were a lot of other people that agreed with that. I will say this. I mean, from my impressions on the roadmap, I'm going to refuse to call it a proposal because it really wasn't a proposal today. Kind of that roadmap going forward. I do have some areas that I'm cautious on, namely is, Chris kind of did point out that the entire dev team really did not go over it, right? We're only talking about a little over 50% actually read the entire thing, and about 90% kind of just skimmed through it, right? Along with my other concern is he was talking about how some of this stuff's already started in the brainstorming. Really, one of the things that's gotten the team into trouble in the past with big sweeping changes or things like this is they start brainstorming and thinking, hey, this is going to be really cool. They start implementing it, and then it comes out to us, and it's too late for them to make changes to the direction they're going. I think one of the things I want to see out of this proposal, coming forward, my initial impression is I want to make sure that we're seeing more community involvement where they're reaching out. And I think we've seen some of that. A great example is Rob PvP he's in direct talks now with the dev team on some of the PvP stuff. So I mean, the future looks brighter.
Well, Mouse, what do you agree with him on that? Is this really a proposal or a roadmap, or what do you think this actually was that we got today?
I kind of think it is a roadmap. When you're reading it, it looks like what their goals are. It's kind of like, okay, we've looked at all of this, which for one is impressive to me that they've actually looked through all of this. They've read what people have put down for once.
Was it him, or is it just Chris, or is it the team? Because he does mention there's not even 50% plus.
Honestly, at this point, I mean, he does try to refer to the other people as well, but I'm thinking personally, a lot of this is him, or it's him saying, "All right, you and you need to sit down here and focus on this, please." I think he's, delegating a lot of this, uh, but I think his hand is a lot in this. So, I mean, that's impressing me a lot, seeing his interactive with the community and on Twitch and whatnot and reaching out to everyone. But he is very quick to say, hey, this isn't just me. Don't get hyped up. This is just, we're trying to make this better for everyone. So that right along there, it impresses me. It makes me happy. He says don't use the word hyped up, but it does hype us up. It gets us excited about it, that there's changes coming. So to see that they're reading this, they're putting these things together. When I read this looks like goals. This is what they're aiming for. And it's kind of giving us a map of, hey, everybody, this is what we're aiming for. We realize that this is going to take time, but just work with us. We are going to try to make these changes.
All right, so let me ask another question about this, basically. So, I mean, there's been some expression of some of the people in the community, not necessarily people in this particular group today, but how would you answer somebody that basically said that, I mean, a lot of this stuff is not stuff that we haven't said before, like over and over and over again for a very long time. Like, maybe Chris came in, read some of the old forums, and then, a lot of this stuff was already like in the works. And then the CDP is kind of like a public relations thing.
I don't. I hope that you don't mind me.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think Chris has been on the team long enough. There's so much stuff on the forums. He's coming in with a fresh perspective from the outside. Yeah, the dev team might have seen some of this stuff, but the dev team has shown time and time again that they're not really understanding what the community wants, right? There's been a number of times in the past where the dev team has gone the complete opposite and said, well, we have reasons. And we go, well, what are those reasons? And they just say reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Chris is really opening up some transparency in this. And part of the CDP is kind of get a fresh perspective of people that are actually playing the game right now, right?
Which is always a bit of a challenge on the forums, to be honest with you, regardless.
Right.
Because
it is. It's a nearly impossible. It's not impossible, but it is a very difficult format to get that kind of information out of.
Right, because I mean, it's not like you can look up somebody. You can see like how many posts they did and when they last posted, and like you can see all their post history, but it doesn't actually determine whether or not they've actually been playing the game. Like, I mean, some of the guys in commenting here could literally be mod 2 they left, right? But regardless, I mean, all right.
Well, the other thing too is that Chris is actually in the game.
Yep.
He is leveling a tune. He's not taking handouts because people have tried to offer him things to make it easier for him, and he's not taking it. He didn't automatically join a level 20 guild and get all these great boons. So he is literally, he's literally out there learning as a regular player would learn, and he's not doing a pay to win.
Yeah.
He's finding all these problems that we had.
And that kind of segues into, and I've said on my wish list a number of times that we need that kind of community involvement from someone on the team, right? We need somebody that's in the game every day, that's playing the game, dedicating some of their work hours, whether it's the community manager or whether, in this case right now it's, Mr. Whiteside or whoever else it is. There needs to be someone in there for an hour or two every day, not in the test sandbox with the developers, not on preview when there's a new mod coming, but actually in the live game, feeling what the players are feeling.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's literally running with other players.
I know. I have to admit, like, I'm supposed to be the moderator here, but I mean, a few of the people that I've watched, like some of the other content creators that have come and gone, I've asked a few of them, what they found, like how they found it, because like, why are they not streaming the game anymore? Like, why did they leave? And so one of them the other day was very kind to, like, I'd asked them months ago and they finally sent it to me, was like, what their experience was like from, leveling all the way going through, and then what happened at the end and why they left. So I'm going to send that like forward to them. But I mean, in reading it, I was honestly shocked about a few of the things, because there was stuff that I just, like a lot of us that have been playing the game for a long time, we don't experience those things because we just inherently know what to do, like because of the length of time we've done it, or we're aware of the changes in certain things, and we know the order from when we did it a long time ago, and these are not things that these people are equipped with when they come in. So anyways, I don't want to, I didn't, it's not my preach box, but I was amazed as well about how many, like, I'm really, it gives me a lot of faith in him that he's doing it that way, because I'm sure he came up with the same stuff that this person did, which is stuff, there was, like I say, a few things that didn't even occur to me. Okay, so let's go on to the next thing. So we covered a little bit of the proposal. That's, going forward, obviously the next CDP, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but let's go back to the bulk of it, like the specific things. Like Willow said that he was proud of the two things that he had were his two things, suggestions in there. Did you read any of that, Rachel, or the summaries? Was there anything in particular that popped out in your eyes that was, the biggest thing, like the thing that you were most excited for your own self to happen? No?
Probably the streamlining of the leveling experience, because that has just such a huge conglomeration of stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff that players need to learn. We don't realize that because like you said, we've been here so long that we just know things. But there is actually a lot of stuff to learn about this game, and then it's not really taught in the game. So the whole process of streamlining it and increasing tutorialization, that was a word that was used in the AMA that I'm not really sure if it's actually a word, but we're going to go with it. And they're going to change campaigns, rewards, player education, purpose, goals, time, and that's pretty much everything. And I think that once that gets streamlined, people are, for one, going to understand a lot more about the game, and maybe understand a lot more about why things are the way they are. That can make them more accepting of other changes that may happen, and, might cause them to not quit in the future if they understand why things are happening, because they know what's going on. Does that make sense? I don't know.
It does a little bit. I mean, you're right that the way he lays it out in the proposal specifically, it does encompass it basically encompasses the whole game. Because I mean, really, yeah. He's talking 1 to 8 experience, 1 to 80 experience, and so, but he's talking about tapping everything: campaigns, rewards, progression, like player education. Like that's basically the whole game. There's nothing other than really it covers everything. It includes even professions essentially.
Well, sorry to interrupt a little bit. No. Let's be honest. The majority of players that come and try a new video game, they give a new video game about 3 hours. If they don't, if by the 3 hour mark, they're not going, hey, I want to continue on, they're done. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then so there's tiers along the point. So, you think about it from a 3 hour tier, and then if they make it past 3 hours, they're probably going to level to 80, right? And or I should say 70, they're probably going to level to 70, right? And if they make it to 70, they're at that point in time, they're going to reevaluate. And right now, there really isn't a clear path of progression that says, hey, you need to go to Undermountain, grab this gear and stuff, unless they're actually communicating with other people. Yeah, the quests are there, but it's just such a flurry. You don't know what you should be doing next. You don't know that sometimes you can skip campaign zones. You don't know what order you need to go in. Any of that stuff there, and there's some tutorials built into the game, but they've been kind of watered down, with artifacts and enchanting and stuff like that. But they're really, the way they're made right now, they're kind of distractions, and they kind of take away from that process and kind of slow you down. And then once you get to 80, then it's like, gloves are off. Here you go. free for all. And you have no idea what you need to do now that you're level 80, right? So the people that I've seen come and then quit the game are generally, they're the 1 to 3 hour people. If they're not convinced that that it's worthwhile spending more time at 3 hours, they're out. And then there's the people that hit that level 70 mark and they go, hey, I'm not convinced that's worth my time, or I have no idea, or I just got stuck on something. I spent 10 minutes trying to figure it out. I don't know what I need to do. They're done, and they probably don't come back to the game. And the same thing happens at 80.
So here's my core question then. So I mean, I agree that those are probably the two schools. But I mean, are we really gonna like model this game around like the 3 hour person, or are we gonna model this game around the person that takes it to 70? Because I mean, one of the issues that I personally saw and I was hoping was gonna happen was like it's too easy to level like in the under levels under 60. Like you don't really like you can burn through stuff in advance really fast on on 160, but you don't really learn a lot.
Why can't we do both?
Way too easy. It's way too easy.
Why can't you do both? Why can't you ramp it up? You mean I mean lower the I'm saying lower the experience giving out, and at the same time lower the raise the information give out. So it takes a little bit longer, but then you're getting a lot more information in the time.
Well, as long as we're not doing repeat quests. It's really right now. I leveled. I generally don't level new characters, but I did level a new character this last fall with the promotion,
right?
Just to get the extra bags and stuff. And I was finding that with some XP stones, I was skipping 3 zones at a time.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Just I would go in, do the first 3 quests in the zone, and then skip over the next 2 or 3 zones, do 2 or 3, and then continue on. And I was thinking to myself, even without these XP zones, it would be pretty easy for me to skip zones and just level to 80, right?
Well, I don't know how different it is now, but I started to level a new character back when I was doing that stream thing. It was after mod 16, but I was not in a guild. I did not have any XP bonuses, no bonus items or anything like that. I was just doing complete, as if I was a brand new player. The only thing I had was VIP because VIP is across the account. But and I found the leveling experience to be pretty even. I wasn't ahead. I was actually behind because I didn't do the Acquisitions Incorporated quests, but I didn't feel like I was burning through things. I didn't feel like I was going too quickly. If anything, I felt like I was going too slowly. And that's why I think there's 2 sides to that. It kind of depends on how you're approaching leveling, because if you're going at it as a brand new player with nothing, it's going to be a completely different experience than if you're approaching it as an experienced player, in an endgame guild and has a lot of XP bonuses and stuff. And you're going to have 2 different perspectives depending on which approach that you take.
Right.
And and your stones as well, right? Like what stones are you wearing, or if you're wearing any, etc. Yeah.
Well, and streamlining the 1 to 80 experience, part of that problem might be really we're talking about 2. I mean, granted, it's the same game, but we're really talking about 2 separate games. The 1 to 80 experience is a completely different game than the 80 plus experience.
And that's why, and I agree, and that's where I wanted to eventually go with the question was. So in my mind, the 1 to 80 experience is one experience, but there should be a similar type experience. And just to quote him, not Mass Effect, going forward after 82, right? There should be some sort of story progression, dragging you either from campaign to campaign, or moving forward.
Don't get me started on I would love to have consequences to our dialogue decisions. Correct. Right?
Yeah.
But we've had that conversation many times.
We've had that, and we've also in this person's letter, one of the things that they talked about was they really enjoyed the first part of the setup of the character and trying to create their character, but at the end of the day they didn't understand what the point was of picking a god or anything else out of a lot of the stuff that was there. There's not a lot other than the appearance. The roll, remember the roll was a thing? We used to try and roll the right numbers, and now the roll's preset. So there's a lot of stuff in that beginning thing that you just don't think wow,
Well,
Does it still not tell you what the ability scores do in the character creation? Because I know that was a problem before. Like, it didn't tell you that strength increased physical damage, so you either had to look it up or just go on blindly and then realize later on, oh, I picked the wrong ability scores at the beginning. Now I have to go back and change it if I want to be most effective.
Well, the point is that the ability, like, so you're, if I remember correctly, like, so you start off with a pre-roll based on your class selection, but and still in the character creation, it still gives you the attribute roll. It gives you the attribute roll before you choose your class. So
when I did it this fall after the the pre-roll, Rachel, it was no, it still did not give. So if Hastur, for example, if let's say you're running in there with a Dragonborn, and so you get 2 stats, you can put +2/2, right?
Right. You pick that before the class.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck with it. Yeah. So it doesn't. You're right. Yeah. That's wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there's
what
you're getting into.
Right. I mean, but again, we all know that like it does make, like, in a Dragonborn's case, it might make a little bit more difference than most of the other classes. Because we also know that the way the attributes like are structured, the numbers, like, for the things, are not even really, they don't really serve any purpose. Like, they're not in the right spots for even the classes that you're rolling for, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's definitely on that journey.
I also think they need to work on when they can communicate. I know they were trying to prevent the gold spammers and all that, but you've got people that come to our streams, for example, and they're interested in the game. They ask questions and they say, you know what? I'm going to give this game a try. You tell them when you get on, look up such and such or ask about such and such, but they can't even speak. They can't ask for nothing.
That was mentioned somewhere.
So I mean, to me,
that's actually in the roadmap. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the roadmap that they're going to go and look at that, about how they do it.
And one of the ways they can solve for that is keep the restraints in there as is, but create a sponsor system, right? And so now, if one of those people becomes a gold seller, well, then the person that sponsored them suffers consequences.
But how do they get sponsored would be the question.
Well, so what they would do is kind of use like the referral link. And so you would give them something they would go to, and then they would then have their chat opened up. They could join your guild, and do whatever.
So then if the person that uses that becomes a gold spammer, then the person who gave them the link would get some sort of punishment?
I mean, that's one way to,
I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I don't like that, because I just don't
know what people are going to do,
Yeah. I just automatically give mine so people can get,
I thought you were going to suggest just go by
talking more like,
friend.
Yeah. I'm talking more like an immediate, like, gold spammer, because, what could happen is you could have, a gold seller go in there, level a character, they have their slave labor leveled a character to 80, and now that character can sponsor everything, right?
Oh, okay.
That's the flip side to that, right? But if all those people that gold spammer, invited, now become gold sellers, then there's some way to track that back.
I'm kind of curious how they're going to go about changing that, because there's really no way to guarantee that somebody's not going to go ahead and just become a gold seller. Yeah. So,
well, here's the question: I mean, like, do those things actually, have they made a difference? Like, the thing is that I haven't, like, cleared off. I know that somebody cleared off their whole, like, ban list, like, off their private thing, and then is it better now? It
is for me.
Like, it is light years. I mean, I'm granted, I've been playing for 6 years. 4 years ago, I couldn't walk into PE without getting it, and I would get probably 5 to 6 gold seller emails a day. I haven't gotten a gold seller email in like 6 months.
I don't know if I've never gotten a mail in game about it. I just see it in, like, the chats and stuff, and even then, it's not. I mean, there's less of a population in the game than there was before, but in general, I just don't see it as often. And then I just immediately block people if I see it. So,
yeah, I cleared my whole ban list, and I don't get mails. Don't get the messages. So
then whatever they
that.
did, we can't argue that it worked. It solved it solved the problem for that particular thing. But at the same point, it created a barrier for new people to come in, right? So I mean, and part of the reason was, from my understanding, was because I was watching a streamer the other night, and he said that he had been gone from the game for a while, but he had like the last time he played, the level cap was 60. And so when he came back, he couldn't talk to anybody, he couldn't go on the age, he couldn't do anything. Because when he leveled that character originally, he, I guess, leveled through however other means, without ever having to do those quests. So because he was level 60 and never done those quests, he was blocked. So
he didn't have any characters on his account that had done it, because I think it's account. Because
yeah,
I've had characters that I leveled.
He might have leveled.
He might have leveled through
might have
PvP.
leveled through PvP.
Yeah. And so what he ended up doing was just leveling a new character, like from scratch. And then once he did that, he naturally did the quests. But I can understand also what Willow's saying is that, if I was level, like, I mean, it's not the same, but if I was a new person, got into a guild, and then managed to level, there's a good chance that I might have skipped like the quests because I might have leveled past the area. So I mean, there is something you said for both. I mean, maybe there's a better way of doing it, is I guess all I'm saying, right? Like, it's obviously effective, but maybe there's a better way of, like, if you haven't completed them, is there a way of doing like a CAPTCHA or something else that would actually open up the things for them? I don't know. But obviously that'll come up in a CDP in a future one. So speaking of like future CDPs, so the next one, like we talked about, is going to be rewards. And, Willow wasted no time in posting like on the board about what his particular thing was on that. And, so let's just pick apart his thing for the time being. Like, I'm assuming you both read it, or all of you read it. And so do you think that that's a necessary thing, for us to have access to be able to, address like the topic, progression and rewards?
I think so, because if we don't know what we're dealing with, we can't properly suggest things to fix it.
But I mean, is it like? Right. So, but I mean, is it necessary for us to know? Like, I can agree, it's necessary for maybe to know the total number of loot tables, but is it necessary for us to know what's in those loot tables?
I think so, because a lot of us have anecdotal evidence of what's on the loot tables. We don't know what's fully on the loot tables, from Lair of Lost Moth to, Tower of the Mad Mage. We have an idea of what's on there. Like, just last week, I remember in Alliance chat, someone's like, I didn't realize coal wards were on this loot table for this dungeon. Yeah, they're on a couple of dungeons loot tables. But as evident, we don't know what's actually on the loot tables for every dungeon. And I think that's something that we would want long term, is what's on the loot tables for each dungeon. But then we can start talking about, is this the correct loot table for this level of difficulty for the content? What could be changed, right? Knowing that we've got a fresh level 80 can get into this dungeon. What's the appropriate loot table? Let's talk about what the appropriate loot table is, as a community, right? And then let's talk to the devs and say, why do you think this is, appropriate or not appropriate, right? But if we're approaching rewards and we're in the blind, right now we're approaching rewards and we're relatively in the blind with just anecdotal. We don't have any hard data. Without that hard data, we really can't make a solid decision.
Well, I know in talking to you in the past too, I mean, you're a proponent that you should be able to know, like, even if you don't know the odds of something dropping, that it should, that basically everyone should know what the reward, what the loot table is for that particular content you're doing, right? Right.
And I'm definitely not suggesting that they necessarily, publish the odds of the drops in the loot table, but at least publish the loot table, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's I think that's a reasonable request. I think that would be the simplest thing. What if they came back and said, we'd love to give you the loot tables, but we have like 1,000 loot tables?
Then publish a spreadsheet with 1,000 loot tables, and I'll pour over it. You know me, Hastur.
Yeah.
I am at heart. I work, in IT, and I work with a data analyst team, and I do a lot of data analytics myself. I do a lot of data analytics in this game. I mean, like, who else do you know that tracked every single reward for every single Demogorgon run they've ever done? Right.
I was more concerned about your house. I was more concerned about your house plans on a previous stream, but yes. But I mean, what about you, Silver? Do you think, like, if they had like 1,000 loot tables, what do you think should be attacked first? Like, I mean, should we be like, because I mean, at that point, if it's that huge,
I don't know how there could be 1,000 if there's only like, I don't know how many pieces of queued content there is. We'll say like 30. That's a guess. So if there really shouldn't be 1,000. If there's 1,000, then I think there's a problem.
Okay. So let's say then, but I mean, the reason why I bring that up about a number is if you think about it, there's chests for every dungeon. There's 2 chests for many dungeons, right? They're not necessarily operating on the same loot tables. Then you have like campaign zones, and then you have like skirmishes and then dungeons, and each of them have like their own loot tables, I'm thinking. So even if you look at the fact that there's probably maybe let's say 22 like active instanced like queuable stuff, and then you have 2 chests, that's 60, right? And then you have like the campaign zones with maybe other chests.
22 times 2 is
22 to 44. Yeah, whatever.
I thought I was the one that's not supposed to be able to do math.
Well, no, I was doing it. Well, I was just trying to see if you're awake. No, you're right.
That's right.
So 22 dungeons, right? So 44 chests. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what
All right, we'll say there's 60 then.
Okay.
So at that point, if there's that many, it would be better to break it down into categories. Like, here's the skirmishes loot tables, and here's the dungeons and epic dungeons, and if they cross over, that should be noted somewhere as well, because I'm sure that there are, between skirmishes and trials and epic dungeons, there's got to be some sort of crossover, that things that use the same, especially if they're in the same tier of content. I would think that they use the same or similar loot tables.
Yeah, so my impression, again, anecdotally, is there appear to be certain dungeons that will only drop certain things, but there's definitely in certain tiers that they drop all the same loot table. So they may have like the same loot table, except for this dungeon can also drop this 1 or 2 other items.
Right.
And even if they give it to us that way and say Lost Moth can drop this and this, and then here's a loot table for epic dungeons, and here's a loot table addition for this dungeon. If they gave it to us that way, even that's information that we don't have right now, other than through experience.
Exactly, because it wasn't until recently that I learned one of the dungeons drops that pirate hat, and I was like, what? I've been wanting one of those. All right, time to run this. So if we had that information available to us, I would know, okay, well, this is the dungeon I need to do this for.
So that's something that
some stuff is in collections, like that pirate hat is in collections, but there's a bunch of other stuff that's not.
And so that's the question. Like, I mean, there is a battle, obviously, like keeping up like with collections, and they said that there's a battle that they're not going to win, because there's so much stuff that they do put in, and like from old, even the new dungeon, they've included some very old transmutes like as drops in the final dungeon. So is it more? So how would you think? Like, how would they go about doing this? Like in a tooltip way, or how do you think that? How do you see that working? Like, let's say, for example, they sorted out, they've managed to have a unique dungeon drop, like for a particular area, like, and let's use the new dungeon as an example. So there's going to be a couple of different transmutes that haven't been in the game for a very long time, that are potential drops in there. How would they actually express that in a tooltip or something in game? Go ahead.
Well, first off, I think that's like the gold standard, like end of the line type of solution, right? To have that in a tooltip. But for starters, get that in the wiki. I mean, they have ability to edit the wiki, throw that out in the wiki, throw it out in the Neverwinter wiki, right? And then, um, you know, it's harder to add tooltips in game and do edits. Why don't they just put a link in the game to the wiki and be like, for more information, go check the wiki? I mean, that's one option, as an intermediate step until they can actually get those things, coded and added in game.
Like having UIs or something, yeah.
Well, not just that, but how many times, well, I know for me personally, but how many times do people just go to Google and type in like the pirate hat, Neverwinter, where do I find it? And the Neverwinter wiki pops up. Or if you're trying to find out a quest, I know I've got a link for like I think it's what the 1 through 60 quest or whatever that I share with a lot of people. But your most up to date things like Ravenloft and Schultz and all that, it's not in there. The quest line that you would go through that would help people. All that stuff, like Willow's saying, that stuff needs to be updated. I don't know who does that, if it's directly related to
The
Neverwinter or
wiki
what. But
is completely separate from Cryptic and just anyone who actually works there because the wiki is player edited. It's peer edited. Anyone can go in and edit anything. And
Right.
I think I don't think they would ever link that in the game directly because of that. Because, someone could go in and erase everything or write something dumb, and then they would be looked at as at fault for that because they provided that information, provided that link for people to go see whatever. But I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, I think what you're saying is that you're concerned that the wiki may not be the answer, even though it sounds like a simple solution, right? Because
Yes.
they don't have any ownership over the wiki.
Yeah, and anyone can go change anything. And the wiki itself, there's the people who updated it before either don't do it anymore or don't play anymore or just don't pay attention to new stuff anymore. And there's not really that many people left who actually edit it too. So
Yeah,
the thing is, they have a website. They could very easily throw a wiki, UI on the domain. That's not a lot of development. It's almost no development effort. They throw a couple people that are responsible for editing it. They close down the edit so it's not a community edit, and now they have something that they can link in. That again, it's something where they can throw more verbose information on. So I'm not necessarily saying that it has to be the Neverwinter wiki, but it could definitely be a link that we could have in game that we could pull up something on a website.
I mean, honestly, like thinking about it, like long term, you would want to get down to something like, say, maybe like 5 different basic tiers of like loot tables, and then unique drops within, like, depending on the dungeon or whatever the content is, like, and so essentially you could have, so everyone knows that you run this dungeon, it's this chest, which then means, like, on this forum that it's this loot table that you're working from, and then then they could add whatever the 5 or 6 items that may be unique to that particular chest, like because of the area it's in, right, as a list.
Hold on, there is. I go to Neverwinter, the ARC site. Under PC, there is a wiki thing, and you click on it. Heads up, you're leaving ARC Games. And it actually takes you directly to the Neverwinter wiki.
Right.
So, is this the same one that we're talking about?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're already linking themselves, yeah?
They are.
I guess they are. Well, that's a question, I guess, maybe to go in, like, to be discussed with the next thing about where they're posting the information. If they are open to linking to it, it would make it far easier. But it would be open to misinformation based on, people editing that.
Or is there a way that they could take it over and privatize it?
Generally, wikis like Wikipedia and stuff are not based on that. It's basically people going in and editing people can change it, but they usually have to post like a reference, or other people have to confirm.
Yeah, it depends on how it's being moderated. I'm not sure how the Gamepedia Neverwinter wiki is being moderated, but there's a couple of different models of Wikipedia. I'm not going to get into it now too heavily, but essentially you can set it up so it's basically free form, where you go and make a change, and then it gets flagged that a moderator sees that, hey, you made a change, and they can go back in and go, hey, this is not factual, and then reverse it. Or you could make a change and it actually doesn't go into effect until a moderator approves it. So there's a couple of different ways wikis can work. So remember, Wikipedia is just one example, whereas it depends on how they implement the wiki.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just sort of wrap it up. Wrap it up? I guess, is there anyone that has anything else that they don't get a chance to say before we sort of like end the first of what we hope is many podcasts?
I know one thing that I'm happy to see that I read in there also is them trying to work with people with disabilities, and that they link the able gamers, because one thing I'm curious to see if they're going to be able to work with is folks with color blindness.
I think they've already actually tried to address some of that, like by accident, I think, in the past.
Right.
Like, so the most glaring example to me of that is the potion thing in the Tomb of the Nine Gods, where it's an animal shape and a color, right?
Right.
Now, people that aren't colorblind yell out the color, like pretty much predominantly. But if the person doesn't understand, they say I'm colorblind, then the people have the option, then they can type in what animal they are. And so the person can identify it. So to me, that was like something that was obviously very forward thinking and encompassed that. But I mean, you know, in varying different, like, but the issue has always been, I guess, like the red area on the floor, right? Like the danger zone. And prior to mod 15, it didn't really matter very much. But it's much more important now.
I think they could add like a texture to it, like a colorblind mode where you enable it, instead of it just being a color, make it have like some sort of texture overlay on the ground so that you can see the difference between the terrain and the danger zone, so that you know to get out of it. That's just an idea that just popped into my head. I don't know how viable it actually is. I'm not colorblind. I don't know anyone that's colorblind as far as I know. So I don't really have any experience with that, but yeah.
I mean, there are people that I play with that are colorblind, but somehow or another they managed to work their way through most of it. Willow?
Yeah, so kind of off the colorblindness. So I do have a couple of guild mates that are colorblind. So that's actually, you know, that's a good call out, Mouse. One of the other things, you know, I guess, again, kind of reiterate my takeaway from the CDP and from the roadmap that was introduced. I'm super optimistic about the future of the game. Even if 10% of what they're proposing gets pulled off, we're going to end up with a better game. That being said, I think it's on us as a community to hold the development team and Mr. Whiteside to accountability, and expect the transparency that's promised, right? And not just transparency in what the future plans are, but transparency in things that are happening before mod drops. We understand that there's legal reasons why they can't talk about certain, you know, like new classes or what the next mod is and stuff like that. But there's definitely things that they can be transparent around, especially when they're talking about, you know, what kind of you know, stuff should go on gear, what should we be doing with class powers and stuff like that. And those are things that there should be transparency on that process, and we should as a community be involved in. And not just that, I know that there's a call out, you know, kind of on the profession system a little bit on Chris's thing, and the way that's worded, it kind of felt like we'll get to it if we can, otherwise, you know, we may not. There's a big chunk of the community that's really, really involved in the profession system, and that would be a shame to kind of let fall to the wayside.
That's kind of how it was mentioned in the AMA also. Somebody asked about the professions, and the answer was We really wanted to get it out in Mod 18, but we just didn't have time. Professions is not forgotten about, but we have to sacrifice something in order to get other things done. And I think that the majority of people would rather have a dungeon than a professions update, and so that's kind of where that went.
Correct.
Well, I mean, so I hate to go back to this, but I mean, I'll read this one line, like sort of one sort of small paragraph that sort of gives like a new player's experience, like entering into the professions and stuff. Because the professions stuff, I understand the importance of it, and you've heard me talk on my stream about how I think it should be leveled in the sense that everyone should have easy access to it. But like but I mean, here I'll read the line, like the thing, because it actually, it was eye-opening to me a little bit. So it says the storyline was super easy to follow at first. After a while, I joined a guild, and then I realized I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I kept leveling faster than I could complete the quest. The storyline became jumbled, and I didn't know what to do next. I specifically remember one day I spent 2 hours going everywhere I could just to accept every quest possible. At that point, I was basically overwhelmed. I was about level 55 or 60. I had so many quests, I didn't know what to do next. I had no idea what was going on in the storyline anymore. At some point, I was introduced to the workshop, but I quickly gave up on that. I had no idea what to do with it, and I didn't know anything about crafting in the game in general. There was just too much to do.
Yeah, makes sense. I believe it. Because I remember that happened to me. Even after knowing what needs to be done, having multiple tunes in the game, coming in here, creating another tune, and even after they took some of the quests out in the different areas, when you're leveling that fast, you've got quests everywhere. And when you turn 60, oh my God, boom, even more. You turn 80, boom, even more.
Yeah, and so,
It's overwhelming.
and so, I mean, it's possible, like, I mean, it would seem possible that you would include something, like, and that's the question is like, is opening, like, I mean, professions, like, really, the starting point is a question, right? Like, where, like, should it be started at level 60? Should it be started at level 80? Should it be started earlier in the game so you sort of grow into it? Like,
Professions
can it be wrapped up? Can it be wrapped up into the storyline? I mean, what is the, it seems like a separate system, right? Which is kind of why, like, I'm assuming that he's sort of pushing it, like, to the outside, is because, like, it doesn't really incorporate in any of the other stuff. Like, this, like, it doesn't, like, when you look at streamlining and talk about streamlining, it doesn't really fit into, like, in its current state, it doesn't fit into any of those categories, right?
Yeah, it doesn't fit into the game.
Right? It's like, it is an end game process, right? Like,
well, let's be honest. Professions is a lot like PvP, right? It's tied in closely to the rest of the game, but it's also not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's fair that he sort of puts it at the end, like, as with the PvP discussions, essentially, right? It's a fair assessment, because it doesn't necessarily fit into the normal progression or the storyline, like, of the thing. And I don't mean to be mean, but it's probably, it's like, until it becomes like an integral part of your development, like, with the community, it should be there where it's at right now. And it's, okay. Anyways, I think that was pretty good. I want to thank everyone for taking part today. And hopefully we'll get together. I guess that the next one would probably be after the next CDP. Like, so after the rewards is done, we'll probably get together. Some of you can come back, or if you want to come back, and we'll also look to sort of add some more, like, content creators from Neverwinter to the panel, so we can get a little bit more of a broader sense of the thing. I'm glad that, Rachel, you joined us today. Thank you for coming, so we can get the YouTube people in here. She's not a YouTuber, by the way.
You're talking about me like I'm some separate species.
You are, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm a human. I mean, I don't know.
You're a tuber.
You have to have like a certain kind of protective skin when you YouTube.
I mean, yes, but also no.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to see what you do with this when you edit it all together.
And thank you, Hastur, for hosting and moderating.
Yeah, I hope I did okay.
Thank you for using your vocal cords excessively in this get together.
We always appreciate that.
Okay, well, no slurping.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have any bits for you right now. I apologize.
All right, well, I just appreciate it. Thank you to Mouse, and thank you to Willow, which I talk to every day. But thank you both for coming. And I guess we'll see you all in 30 to 45 days for the next one.
We should all say okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.